Min Bium is high due to the effects of the drugs and starts hallucinating. Jiana films Min Bium and leads him away. Gang Yong is alerted and takes Min Bium to the hospital. There, the doctor reveals that Min Bium's drink was laced with a powerful drug that has severely impacted his kidneys, and he may need a transplant to survive. Meanwhile, Gunwoo blames himself while Gwangmu waits outside and texts Duyong. The four men head to the bar and go through the CCTV footage. They find the bartender tied up inside a room, and he reveals that Jiana showed up and drugged him. The footage confirms his statement, and Gang Yong suspects that someone who knew Min Bium's whereabouts was involved. Back at the investigation, Gang Yong asks Gunwoo to join him to check on Min Bium's secretary, Won Yang. He asks Gwangmu and Woo Jin to pair up and find Jiana, but Gunwoo suggests going with Gwangmu to prevent Woo Jin from using his injured hand. On the way, Gunwoo gets a call from Baek Jong, who threatens to harm Woo Jin and So Yun if he continues to resist. He also reveals that he used a spy inside the police department to kill Jiang-won. Elsewhere, Gwangmu and Gunwoo go to a queer bar and speak to a man about the date rape drug. The man introduces them to a dealer, June, who reveals that Jiana is his girlfriend. June shares her location, and the two relay the information to Gang Yong. Meanwhile, Gang Yong and Woo Jin meet Won Yang at his apartment. Won Yang and his sister reveal that she was attacked and held hostage, while three men forced him to expose Gunwoo's location. He also reveals that he was threatened into sharing the name of the bar Min Bium was visiting. His description of the attackers gives Gang Yong a clearer idea of who they are dealing with. At the meeting, Gang Yong introduces Detective Woo Jong to the group. Woo Jong reveals that he traced the luxury watch from the photo Gwangmu shared, and only 2 men in South Korea own it, one of whom is Sergeant Yoon Tae-geometry. He gives them a brief background on Yoon and reveals that his daughter lives in South Korea with his mother. Gang Yong creates a chart to map Baek Jong's network. The group concludes that Baek Jong is working with Sergeant Yoon, In Bium, Mr. Lee, a hacker named Alan, and a doctor involved in drugging Min Bium. Gunwoo shares that Baek Jong mentioned having a police informant, and Gang Yong warns them not to trust anyone. He assigns tasks to everyone so they can work simultaneously. Meanwhile, Min Bium struggles with withdrawal symptoms at the hospital. The doctors ask him to take medication for the pain, but he refuses. Elsewhere, Gang Yong visits Sergeant Yun's mother and asks Woo Jin to distract his daughter. The mother claims she does not know Yun's whereabouts, but the daughter reveals that she saw him recently. The mother also explains that Yoon borrowed money during his wife's illness and was later forced out of the military by Baek Jong. Back at the station, Woo Jong informs Gang Yong that the man who stabbed Jaeyoung-won is Mr. Lee Man-bae. Shortly after, Min Bium calls Gang Yong and says he is still in pain but doing slightly better. That night, Gang Yong, Gunwoo, Woo Jin, and Gwangmu go to the building where Jiana is working. June reveals that it is a makeshift casino. Inside, Gwangmu spots Jiana dealing cards, and she senses danger and triggers an alarm. The criminals begin attacking them, but Gunwoo fights them off. Meanwhile, Jiana tries to escape through the emergency staircase, but Woo Jin stops her. She attempts to stab him, but Woo Jin knocks her out. Gang Yong asks Taeyong to hack into Jiana's phone, where she finds a chat with the person who ordered Min Bium's drugging. Taeyong reveals that Jiana met this person earlier at a hotel and calls the hotel to gather more information. The receptionist mentions suspicious men staying in the penthouse. At the same time, Baek Jong and Alan meet a potential investor and try to convince him to invest in IKFC. The man seems uninterested but admits that having Gunwoo could attract viewers. Just then, the receptionist informs Baek Jong that the police have been asking about him. Back at the operation, Gang Yong calls for backup and leads a raid on the hotel. However, Baek Jong has already left the penthouse. Inside, Gang Yong finds a ticking bomb and tries to evacuate the officers, but it explodes and destroys the floor. In the aftermath, Gunwoo panics but answers a call from Baek Jong. Baek Jong tries to pressure him into fighting at his club. Gunwoo agrees to fight for IKFC. Gunwoo rushes Gang Yong to the hospital while Min Bium learns about the incident from the news. The doctors scan Gang Yong's skull and discover a hairline fracture. Woon Jong calls Gunwoo and Woo Jin to ask what is going on, and Woo Jin is shocked to hear about the accident. Meanwhile, Woo Jong joins Gwangmu and Woo Jin to get Jiana to reveal who hired her. He speaks to her calmly and convinces her to cooperate. Jiana admits that Lee Man-bae hired her to drug Min Bium and agrees to help them meet him the next morning. Woo Jin takes her to his hotel to keep her safe. At the hospital, Min Byum meets his uncle, Director Kong of the National Intelligence Service. He asks for help dealing with Baek Jong and requests someone to kill the person who drugged him. Back at the hotel, Woo Jin talks to Gun Woo about the attack on Gang Yong. Gun Woo blames himself for what happened to everyone, including Min Byum and Gwang Moo. Woo Jin reassures him that they are helping him because they care about him and reminds him that they are like family. Elsewhere, Baek Jong prepares a list of fighters for a match scheduled the next day. Taeyong informs Woo Jin and Woo Jong that Gun Woo will have to fight multiple opponents until only one remains. They realize Baek Jong will try to force Gun Woo into the ring. Meanwhile, Gang Yong leaves the hospital against medical advice and goes to the hotel to meet the team. Taeyong reveals that the hotel receptionist may have leaked information to Baek Jong. Gang Yong plans the next steps, asking Woo Jong to join him in catching Manbei while he meets Ji Na. He sends Woo Jin and Gwang Moo to find Sergeant Yoon Taegeometry and tells Gun Woo to stay in the hotel to avoid being kidnapped. At the same time, Baek Jong sends Gun Woo the fight location. While Ji Na waits to meet Manbei, he notices the police following her and sends a biker after her. As soon as she leaves the cafe, the biker slits her throat, killing her. Meanwhile, Gun Woo trains alone at the hotel, while Baek Jong prepares for the fight as international fighters arrive. On the night of the match, Gun Woo sneaks out of the hotel without informing security and goes to the location. Baek Jong threatens to kill his family if he loses on purpose. Gun Woo enters the ring as Taeyong tracks the livestream and tries to reach him. When she realizes he is not in his room, she alerts Woo Jong. Meanwhile, Woo Jong and Gang Yong rush back and watch the livestream. Gun Woo defeats two opponents easily, and the crowd begins to support him. This angers Baek Jong, who enters the ring and attacks him brutally. Elsewhere, So-yeon panics as she watches her son being beaten. Gang Yong and Woo Jong track the arena location and send the police to stop the fight. Alan learns about the incoming police and informs Sergeant Yoon and Manbei. The arena is cleared, and Sergeant Yoon forces Baek Jong to stop the match. The next morning, Gun Woo wakes up in the hospital and apologizes to Woo Jin for facing Baek Jong. Woo Jin tells him they can take him down if they work together. At the same time, Gang Yong asks the police to issue a wanted alert for Baek Jong. Elsewhere, Baek Jong meets an international investor who wants to buy into IKFC after watching the match. The investor points out that Gun Woo has become the crowd favorite and suggests making him the face of the club. Baek Jong refuses the offer. Meanwhile, Manbei informs Baek Jong that he is now wanted in South Korea and urges him to leave the country. Baek Jong refuses to run and instead orders Manbei to kidnap So-yeon, so he can force another fight with Gun Woo. Manbei tells Baek Jong that he needs 4 days to arrange a private jet to leave South Korea. He suggests hiring S-class Bloodhounds to increase their chances of kidnapping So-yeon. Baek Jong insists that In Byum lead the job along with 2 other S-class fighters. Meanwhile, Sergeant Yoon receives a call from his mother about his daughter's accident and rushes to the hospital. There, Gang Yong approaches him and tries to convince him to switch sides. Gang Yong and Gwang Moo pressure him to cooperate, promising protection for his family if he helps them. Sergeant Yoon agrees but is told to wait for the right moment. At the hospital, Sergeant Yoon reveals that Lee Manbei, whose real name is Lee Dong-hyun, is a former NIS agent working with Baek Jong. He explains that Manbei has several police officers under his control and that Baek Jong plans to kidnap So-yeon and take her to Thailand. He also reveals that Baek Jong wants a death match with Gun Woo and has already hired S-class Bloodhounds. Their conversation is cut short when Baek Jong calls him back. At the same time, Black Operations Agent Choi Sin-hyong meets Min Byum at the hospital. They discuss Baek Jong's actions, while Sin-hyong and his partner Sol-ji wait outside. Min Byum later joins Gang Yong and Gwang Moo to discuss their next move. Back at the hospital, Min Byum checks on Gun Woo, who is still recovering. He keeps his phone on while speaking with Gang Yong and Gwang Moo about stopping Baek Jong. Gang Yong shares that Sergeant Yoon is now working with them and suggests preventing Baek Jong from leaving the country. Min Byum questions whether arresting him will bring peace, but Gang Yong insists they cannot take the law into their own hands. Min Byum mentions using black ops, but Gang Yong refuses. Meanwhile, Woo Jin tells Gun Woo that his father knows Baek Jong's coach. He admits he cannot train him directly but suggests reaching out to the coach for help. Elsewhere, Gang Yong, Taeyong and Woo Jong discuss bringing in more officers. Taeyong suggests calling Sergeant Yoon Han-gu, who arrives with a team to help take down Baek Jong. At the same time, Manbei prepares Baek Jong's escape to Bangkok. Baek Jong shares the next day's plan with Sergeant Yoon, who relays it to Gang Yong. The police plan an operation to capture Baek Jong at Dr. Moon's vet clinic, and Gang Yong warns them to stay alert for any compromised officers. When Baek Jong arrives at the clinic, the police raid the location. Dr. Moon is arrested while Baek Jong fights back using a scalpel. A second unit subdues him with tasers, and he is taken into custody. Meanwhile, in the police vehicle, Baek Jong realizes Sergeant Yoon betrayed him. At the same time, Alan offers Manbei 5 bitcoins to rescue Baek Jong. Manbei sends a message in the Bloodhounds group chat, calling for fighters. Duyong sees the message and decides to contact Gunwoo and Woo Jin. On the freeway, the police convoy is attacked by Bloodhounds. Despite their efforts, Gang Yong and his team fail to stop them. Baek Jong frees himself, kills Han-gu and Sergeant Yoon, and escapes. Gang Yong and Gwang-moo are seriously injured and taken to the hospital. After escaping, Baek Jong calls Manbei and demands that So-yeon be brought to him. Back at the hotel, Taeyong notices the Wi-Fi going down and senses danger. Guards ask Woo Jin to call the police while they fight off the attackers. Meanwhile, Woo Jin steps out to fight despite So-yeon asking him to stay inside. He encounters In-beom and tries to fight him, but is overpowered. To save Woo Jin, So-yeon steps out and agrees to go with In-beom. Woo Jin tries to stop her from leaving. Woo Jong learns about the deaths of Han-gu and Sergeant Yoon. Min-beom goes to the hospital where Gang Yong and Gwang-moo are admitted. She also learns that Gang Yong has a brain hemorrhage, which worries him. Meanwhile, Woo Jin tells Gun-woo that he failed to protect So-yeon from being kidnapped. Elsewhere, Baek Jong plans to leave South Korea, but NIS agents waiting at the airport scare Manbei. He tells Baek Jong that they cannot leave the country. At the hospital, Min-beom meets Black Ops agent Sin Hyong and discusses ways to stop Baek Jong. Sin Hyong suggests luring him out by offering a fight with Gun-woo and a large sum of money. He believes Baek Jong's greed will force him out of hiding and claims the Black Ops team will ensure his death. Meanwhile, Duyong decides to meet the group after sensing they are in danger. With no way to protect Sergeant Yun's family, Woo Jong asks Gun-woo to take them in. Gun-woo and Woo Jin return home, where they meet Min-beom, Woo Jong, and Taeyong. Min-beom reveals that Gang Yong is still critical and takes charge of the plan, asking Gun-woo if he is willing to fight Baek Jong, and Gun-woo agrees. That night, Duyong meets the group and reveals that he has been living as a bloodhound after going into hiding following the events involving President Choi and Yang Yong. He shows them the Bloodhounds group chat. The group plans to rescue So-yeon, and Duyong first visits Dr. Moon and forces him to reveal Baek Jong's location. Meanwhile, Woo Jin tells Min-beom that he and Gun-woo want to take on Baek Jong and In-beom together to keep them occupied while So-yeon is rescued. Min-beom contacts Manbei using the number obtained from Dr. Moon and challenges them to a fight in exchange for money and So-yeon's release. Baek Jong threatens to kill So-yeon, but Manbei stops him, reminding him they need her alive to escape. Manbei renegotiates and demands Min-beom's private jet in exchange for releasing So-yeon after they leave the country. Min-beom agrees and sets the fight for 10 days later. Over the next week, Woo Jin and Gun-woo train with Baek Jong's former coach. Meanwhile, Baek Jong and In-beom also prepare for the fight. Woo Jong gathers support from trusted officers, and Taeyong identifies the fight location as an abandoned university with multiple rooms. Duyong plans to enter as a bloodhound to locate So-yeon from inside. Before the match, Woo Jin and Gun-woo plan their strategy. Woo Jin decides to enter the ring first and target Baek Jong's eye to weaken him. Gun-woo suggests using metal bars on their knuckles to fight more effectively. On the day of the match, Duyong enters the building as a bloodhound. Manbei assigns positions to all the bloodhounds and orders them to kill anyone who leaves their post. Meanwhile, Min-beom enters the arena with Gun-woo and Woo Jin, while Woo Jong and Taeyong wait outside. As Alan checks Min-beom's Bitcoin wallet, Taeyong hacks into his phone. The fight begins, and Duyong starts eliminating the bloodhounds inside the building. Baek Jong enters the ring expecting to fight Gun-woo but faces Woo Jin instead. Woo Jin provokes him, and the two fight, with Woo Jin enduring heavy injuries before striking Baek Jong's eye. Next, Gun-woo faces In-beom in the ring. After a brutal fight, Gun-woo knocks him out and breaks his wrist to stop him from fighting again. Despite his injury, Baek Jong returns to the ring, determined to kill Gun-woo. Meanwhile, Duyong clears the building and discovers a decoy placed to mislead them. He contacts Woo Jong and directs him to another building where So-yeon is held. Woo Jong finds Manbei holding So-yeon hostage and shoots him, killing him instantly. He brings So-yeon outside as Gun-woo knocks Baek-jong out. Soon after, backup police enter the arena and arrest Baek-jong. So-yeon reunites with her sons outside. As Baek-jong is taken into custody, Shin Hyong and his team intercept and abduct him. They send Min Byum a photo of Baek-jong's body and return the money. Back at their house, Gun-woo and Woo-jin decide to continue training so they can take down people like Baek-jong in the future. Shin Hyong meets Baek-jong, who is still alive. He offers him a deal to work for Black Ops, and Baek-jong agrees to help take down Pachit Chaichana, who plans to bring meth worth 300 billion won into South Korea. They stage a fake gunshot to mislead Min Byum.